So before we start building, we need to decide on a pinout. Um, if the modular chassis unit is going to be compatible with all of the sabers that you have, you need to have a consistent wiring scheme, so a pinout, so that you know where all the pins are going to go between the modular chassis unit and your hilts. So this takes a little bit of forethought in terms of what your requirements are and what you would like to have out of the system. But I'll kind of walk you through what I did and point out some of the options along the way. So I picked a GX16 connector with 8 pins, and I wrote down what each of the pins was going to do. So in this case, one of the pins is the negative wire to my NeoPixel strips. Pin 2 was the data wire to the NeoPixel strips. Pin 3 was the positive wire to the NeoPixel strips. Pin 4 was the auxiliary, like a second data wire to, say, a subblade or an auxiliary blade or a crystal chamber NeoPixel strip. And then pin 5 was for the activation switch, pin 6 was for the common ground for the switches, pin 7 was for the auxiliary switch, and pin 8 was for the tangible ID system. So that's what I have there. You need to think, do you want the tangible ID system? Do you have, say, accent LEDs that you want to be driving off of the accent LED pads? Are you going to have some sabers that need the secondary NeoPixel strips? So you want to plan ahead and give yourself maybe some room to grow in future sabers if you need that. Now, something that's not listed here is the kit has the ability to have 2 more low current connections through a set of spring-loaded pins next to the GX16 connector, and you could use those in conjunction with the NeoPixel ground to drive 2 LEDs from the LED sequencer or a OLED that's on the hilt side instead of on the chassis. You'll notice in some of my sabers I have the lit anti-vandal switches, and I light those switches using the power and ground off of the NeoPixel strip. I found that a couple of very low current LEDs kind of piggybacking off of the power and ground from the NeoPixel output from the board works just fine, and then they also turn off during deep sleep on the CFX. So that was the solution that I went with. And you'll notice some other things that I did during the build process that are going to help out greatly is just keeping notes of decisions you make while you build the modular chassis system, what color wires you use to represent certain things, taking notes from the user manual, because what's going to happen is maybe a year, 2 years down the road, a new hilt that you really like comes out. And the advantage of the modular chassis system is that with just a few low-cost components, you can build the hilt side connector and then plug your already existing modular chassis unit into it. But you want to make sure that you haven't forgotten anything and wire anything incorrectly. So taking notes along the way so you can refer back to it is going to be super helpful. One thing that you definitely want to keep track of is the resistors that you use along the way for the tangible ID or the tangible font system, so so that you know kind of what slots have been used and what slots are open when you're building in the future. So the main point, make sure that you decide the number of pins for your GX16 connector ahead of time. Give yourself some headroom and set up a pinout, write it down, and stick to that across all of your hilt connectors.